What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG TCG video. Today, guys, we are going to be discussing the new Kshatri-La. I think that's how you're supposed to say it. I do apologize if I'm pronouncing the name of the archetype wrong. It's the new archetype that is set to release in Darkwing Blast. Very excited to be going over this new archetype with you guys, so without further ado, let's get right into it. So, as per usual with these card game videos, I'll go over the monsters first, then the extra deck monsters, and end off with the spells and traps. And the first card we're going to be discussing is KshatriLa Fenren, a level 7 Earth Sidekick effect monster with 2400 attack and defense, and you can only use the second and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. During your main phase, you can add one Kshatri-La monster from your deck to your hand, and when this card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls, banish it face down. So this is actually a pretty interesting card. The fact that you can be able to search for any of your Kshatri-La monsters from your deck and add it to your hand, obviously being the searcher of the deck, it's really good. And the third effect is very interesting, to where when this card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, you get to target a face-up card your opponent controls and banish it face down. Little weird of effect, but it's actually a pretty cool effect, and you got two choices in order to actually activate the effect. You know, you can either do it when you actually declare an attack with this monster, which it has 2400 attack, so I can possibly see that being the case, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, which is also very likely to happen. So yeah, overall, really cool card, and also it special summoned itself very easily, which makes sense because obviously this is a level 7 Earth monster. You need an easy way to get this monster on your field, especially since it's a searcher. So the fact that it's easy to special summon to your field, you get to add your Kshatri-La monsters from your deck to your hand, and you can target face-up cards your opponent controls and banish them face down. That's actually really cool in my opinion. So honestly, this is actually a pretty solid card in my opinion. So with that said, the next card that we're going to be discussing is KshatriLa Unicorn, a level 7 Wind Sidekick effect monster with 2500 attack and 2100 defense, and you can only use the second and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then during your main phase, you can add one Kshatri-La spell from your deck to your hand, and when this card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and banish one monster from it face down. So this card is very similar to Fenren, but it does have some differences. Obviously, in terms of its search effect, it searched for the Kshatri-La spell cards instead of the monster cards like Fenren does, and then for its third effect, where if you declare an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, instead of targeting a face-up card your opponent controls and banishing it face down, you get to look at your opponent's extra deck and banish one monster from it face down, which I actually really like that effect, because it makes it to where if your opponent's, let's say, you know, you're going, you know, second or something like that, and your opponent has set up their board and stuff like that, and you can actually deal with the board. By being able to destroy monsters in their extra deck, it allows it to where they're going to have a harder time to be able to recover if you're able to wipe out your opponent's board, and they're going to have a harder time to be able to come back from it, because since you can banish stuff from their extra deck, it makes it to where they're going to have to find a different way to try and kill over your monster. So that's pretty cool. The only thing I will say, though, I'm not really a big fan about with this card is that it also has the effect of where if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And the only reason why I have a problem with this card having it is because Fenren has the exact same one, so you cannot have both of these monsters on your field. You're going to have to find another way to summon the other one, whether or not you summon Fenren or Unicorn, you know, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to find a way to summon the other one, the one that you don't pick. So not really the biggest fan of that, but if you take that out of consideration, another pretty solid card in my opinion. I do prefer Fenren a little more because I do think the payoffs are a little bit better in my opinion, but I still think this is actually a pretty cool card in my opinion. But with that said, the next card that we're going to be discussing is KshatriLa Org, a level 7 water psychic effect monster with 2800 attack and 1000 defense, and you can only use the second and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and during your main phase, you can add one KshatriLa trap from your deck to your hand, and when this card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck, and if you do, banish one of them face down, also place the rest on the top of the deck in that same order. So this is actually a really fascinating card. Obviously, this card fits the trifecta in terms of being able to search for KshatriLa cards. You know, you had Fenren that searched for your monsters, you had Unicorn that searched for your spells, and now you have Org that actually searches for your traps. So that's pretty cool. And then the unique third effect where it can excavate the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck and you get to choose one to banish it face down is also really cool in my opinion. You know, being able to potentially get rid of a hand trap in your opponent's deck so they can't use that against you, or getting rid of one of their combo starters or even just one of their combo pieces and being able to banish it. That's honestly really cool in my opinion, and you get to place the rest of the cards on the top of the deck in the same order that they were excavated, so you know what the next 4 cards your opponent is going to have in their deck. So that's actually really cool in my opinion. So yeah, really cool card. I do have the same problem like I did with Unicorn. I don't feel like these monsters should have the same special summoning effect, because just like with Unicorn and Fenren, they can be special summoned if you control no monsters. I still only wish that one of them had that effect. Now, maybe the spell or trap card that we'll discuss a little later on probably kind of mitigates this, and basically, you know, allowing each of the cards to be able to special summon itself if you control no monsters on your field is cool, I guess, for that regard, because maybe, you know, the spell or trap that we're going to discuss a little bit later might kind of fix that to be able to get the other monsters onto the field. But I don't know, I would have probably rather them just have it to where they have their own unique way of special summoning themselves out to the field. But besides that, I do think these 3 main cards for the deck are pretty solid in my opinion. But that's going to be it for the main deck monster. So let's go into the extra deck monster, which is KshatriLa Shangri-La, a rank 7 Fire Psychic Xyz effect monster with 0 attack and 3000 defense, and the materials for this monster are 2 or more level 7 monsters, so it's a generic Xyz monster, so that's pretty cool. And you can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. During each standby phase, you can special summon one KshatriLa monster from your deck. Each time an opponent's card is banished face down, you can choose one unused main monster zone or spell and trap zone. It cannot be used while this monster is face up on the field, and if this card were to be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach one material from it instead. So this is a interesting card to say the least. The first effect to be able to special summon a KshatriLa monster from your deck is cool. Obviously, you already have to Xyz summon this monster in order for that to really be that useful, but it doesn't solve the problem that I was mentioning earlier, because you still have to try and go into this Xyz monster. And from the purity perspective, it's not going to really work out because, like I said earlier, the main deck monsters can only special summon themselves if you control no monsters. So from the purity standpoint, you know, it's going to be really not plausible to be able to do that. But if you're incorporating other easy to summon level 7 monsters, then I can see this being very useful, because obviously, you know, you can summon one of your KshatriLa monsters to your field when you control no monsters, then you can summon the other easy to summon level 7 monster, and because it's a generic, you can actually make that work, go into this monster, and basically have this as your combo extension to where you can search for your other KshatriLa monsters and being able to summon them from the deck. And then the second effect is interesting, not the greatest effect, if I'm going to be completely honest, because making it to where your opponent can't use certain zones is cool in theory, but with how the game has progressed, and you look at certain decks, like for example, Sword Soul doesn't really need that many zones if you really think about it. They just need one zone for the regular monster and one zone for the token, and that's really it, or at least to get one of their ace monsters. Obviously, if they want to get the other monsters, they're going to need a little more than that, but for how decks are in today's game, you don't really see them using too much of the field. I mean, hell, fusion decks, you really just need one zone, and that's for the fusion monster, because cards these days can fusion summon monsters from the deck. So being able to do that is cool, but it's not the greatest effect out there. And then the third effect to give this card some protection is actually really cool in my opinion. And even though I don't think it makes it too worth it because of the second effect, any type of protection on any card is really solid in my opinion. So yeah, really cool card. I guess the only other thing I will say I'm not the biggest fan of is the fact that you cannot use this monster for battle at all because it has 0 attack. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I would have liked to be actually able to use this monster. Instead, this monster just feels like more of a combo extender more than anything, with also the capability of being able to make it to where your opponent can't use zones, which is okay in my opinion, but you know, again, it's not the greatest effect out there. So overall, a cool card to say the least, but it's not the craziest card in my opinion. But with that said, that's going to be it for the extra type monsters, so let's go into the spells and traps. And the first card we're going to be discussing is KshatriLa Birth, a continuous spell card that reads, you can only use the first, second, and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. You can normal summon level 7 monsters without attributing. During your main phase, you can special summon one of your non-Xyz KshatriLa monsters that is banished or in your graveyard, and if your opponent activates a spell card or effect and you control a KshatriLa monster, you can target 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard, banish them face down. So I'm just going to say this right here and right now. You are playing 3 copies of this card, no debate. I mean, the fact that you can normal summon level 7 monsters without attributing is fantastic, and basically mitigates the issue that the main deck monsters had, because although, yeah, you can still use one of your special summonings on that effect where you can control no monsters, basically what you can do is you can special summon one of the KshatriLa main deck monsters, activate your Birth, and then you're able to basically go into one of your normal summons of the other monster, and then you can go into your Shangri-La, excuse me. So, really do like that, and this also means you probably are playing 3 Unicorn as well, because it does search this card. So, yeah, really do like it from that perspective, and then being able to get back one of your KshatriLa monsters that is banished or is in your graveyard is really cool, and in fact, you get to just straight up special summon it, so really do like that as well. And then the third effect, to where when your opponent activates a spell card or effect, and you control a KshatriLa monster, the fact that you can banish 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard, which really helps with the Shangri-La's effect, where it can make it to where your opponent can't use zones. That means that 3 zones can no longer be used now because of the fact that you just banished 3 cards. So yeah, really does help out with the boss monster, and it just helps with you actually playing the deck, because like I was saying earlier, it was such a problem of being able to summon your monsters because they were only locked to being only able to special summon themselves if you control no monsters. So this mitigates that whole problem, and it's searchable with Unicorn. So yeah, easy 3-of with this card, and an easy 3-of a Unicorn. So overall, really solid card in my opinion. But with that said, that's going to lead us into the final card of this video, which is KshatriLa Prepare, a continuous trap card that reads, you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. During either player's turn, you can special summon one of your KshatriLa monsters that is banished or in your hand. If your opponent activates a trap card or effect while this card is face up in the spell and trap zone, and you control a KshatriLa monster, you can look at your opponent's hand and banish 1 card from it face down. So this is actually a really powerful card. So the first effect to be able to special summon a KshatriLa monster that is banished or in your hand is really good in my opinion, depending on the scenario that you're in. You know, that is very good to be able to get your monsters to your field, and if you're able to actually banish KshatriLa monsters, you know, being able to bring them back from the banish zone and being able to special summon them so that way you can go into your further plays, you know, that's really solid. And then the second effect, my god, that effect is really phenomenal. I mean, the fact that you get to look at your opponent's hand and then you get to banish 1 card from their hand, I mean, this card is basically this archetype's version of Trap Dust Shoot. I mean, holy crap, this card is really, really good in my opinion. Yes, it's a trap card, I'm aware of that, but the effects just are so good that I can easily see you playing 3 copies of this card. I mean, you get this special summon in your KshatriLa monsters, which if you don't have Birth, I mean, it makes it to where it's another way to get these monsters to your field, so that way you can actually go into your Xyz plays, and then being able to basically trap Dust Shoot your opponent. I mean, this card is an easy 3 of in my opinion. This is a very solid card. But with that being said, that's going to be it for this new KshatriLa archetype. General thoughts on the new archetype. I actually think this archetype has a lot of potential. The biggest issue that I see with the support that we got right now is that you're gonna have to jump through a lot of hurdles in order to really go into your full combos, but if you're able to make the scenarios work out, you know, I do think the deck can be pretty solid in my opinion. Some of the ways that I think this deck needs to improve on is the first thing, getting a better ace monster, because as much as I do think Shangri-La is not a bad card, I just think that it could have been a whole lot better as the ace monster of the deck. I feel like you kind of had a better boss monster in my opinion, and obviously we're going to get more boss monsters for the archetype. It's just that I want a better Xyz monster and an Xyz monster that can actually battle, because I think it's so stupid that the ace monster of this deck cannot actually battle. It has 0 attack. Like, how the hell did you think that was a good design philosophy? Literally, all this card does is just sit in defense position and just gets your other monsters to the field, which is good, don't get me wrong. It's just that I kind of wish you did a little bit more as the ace monster, the card that you're basically trying to go into with this deck. In my opinion, I feel like the best card that you probably would go into is number 89, in my opinion. That would probably be the best Xyz monster that you can go into. So, yeah, like, I definitely do think this deck needs a better ace monster, and having a monster that Fenren can search that can special summon itself. I want some more monsters that can actually special summon itself without having to rely on Birth or Prepare, in my opinion. I do think if we can get some of these monsters that can actually special summon themselves without having to require on the spell or trap cards would be really cool, in my opinion. Or just having a monster that can special summon KshatriLa monsters from your deck. Like, I would really like it if we had a monster that could do that as well. So, yeah, definitely need some more improvements with the deck. But this is the first batch of cards that we're getting for the deck. Obviously, we're going to see some more support in the near future. Maybe we'll see it in that new main core set that got announced not that long ago. I think it's like Photon Hyperdrive, I think it's what it's called. I might be thinking of the name wrong, so more than likely we're going to be seeing new support for this in that set. So hopefully some of the things that this deck needs to improve on gets resolved in that set. But with that being said, that's going to be it for this OCG TCG video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this new archetype. Did you guys think it was a good archetype? Did you think it was alright? Or do you think this archetype is not really that great based off of the first batch of cards that we've gotten for this new archetype? And let me know some improvements that you think this deck needs to become a better deck. Would love to hear some of the ideas that you guys got for this archetype, and just let me know you guys' thoughts on the archetype as a whole. Like, do you actually have interest in this archetype, or do you not really care too much about the archetype? But with that being said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.